Today is a gracious space spring. We are reading day 16, so if you've got your book, pull it out. If you don't have one yet, you can buy one. I included a link. And the name of today's reading is When You Lose Your Cool. I lost my cool during spring break, when I'm not supposed to. Has that ever happened to you? I snapped. Not just once, but a couple of times since my children have been home from college and work. I don't see myself this way, as a person who will snap and get testy or passive-aggressive when I'm under stress. I see myself in this idealized way, that I have patience and perspective, that I can say what I need directly without using shame or manipulation to get what I want. But now the kitchen is turned upside down and my brand new white dish towels are slowly drying with black tea stains. And I'm behind on my shopping. And there are piles of large adult children's stuff tucked in around the edges of each room. Because that's what college kids do with their stuff when home for break. Bam! I get blindsided by my own frustration and let it out. It's not so much that I yell, not my usual style. Rather, I bound into the room already on edge, aware that I have work to do, unmindful of my hunger pangs, and feeling cold. I see the evidence of a meal just made and the new stained tea towel, and I react. I make declarative statements about who is responsible for this mess and blame someone other than myself for the tea towels and then expect everyone to pop up and fix it. I do almost cry. Overreaction. Yet perhaps it is not at all an overreaction. Perhaps that is the reaction that needed to happen hours before when I felt past my limit and worried about how I'd get it all done, before I entered the house and found someone to blame for my pent-up anxiety. The big kids snapped too, including my son's girlfriend who also witnessed my meltdown. That's when the guilt hit. I knew I'd been unnecessarily exasperated. Fortunately for me, one of the kids called me on it. He stated calmly and honestly, but with hurt in his voice, that I had crossed a line, had crashed the peaceful atmosphere of the home with my anxiety, and had misplaced my accusations. I hate that. I hate doing that. I hate being in the wrong. I hate that I had to apologize to my kids for that behavior, and frankly, I didn't even want to. But I know it's a gift, that if I can let go of my pride for a moment, I can stop the madness and start over with everyone. Which is what we did. I apologized. So did he, and we cleaned up the kitchen and ate food and turned up the thermostat and watched TV by the fire. Spring break is meant to be relaxed, a homey opportunity for family togetherness. Weird how that vision can lead to the very things that undermine the goal: chaos, stress, expectation, and moodiness. I rebooted last night. I'm glad my kids feel free to tell me when I'm out of line. Quote of the day. I feel as if you were spying on my house this morning. Glad we are all in this together. Poppy Howells. Sustaining thought. It's okay to lose your cool, and it's even better to acknowledge it and apologize. Have you lost your cool this week? Maybe in the last month? It's human. Utterly and completely human. Even as we aspire to be the kind of parent that is connected, relational, takes personal responsibility, we do get exasperated by our children, don't we? I don't know about you, but what happens to me is that it builds up. I think I'm being this generous, gentle, kind, patient-loving parent, but I don't realize that I am accumulating resentments. I might have had a bad day, for a completely unrelated reason. Like maybe my spouse was short with me in the morning. Maybe I had a bad dream from the night before. Maybe I just got scary news about a relative who is suddenly diagnosed with cancer. Or maybe someone on Facebook left me a message that set me on edge. It challenged an assumption. It made me reconsider something I really thought I knew to be true. And there's this underlying tension, this stewing that starts to take place inside of me that I'm not paying attention to. Do you know that feeling? It's like the mosquito buzz. You know how you can't really watch TV while the mosquito is in the room? You try and you try to kill it and the mosquito keeps moving. Eventually you just get out of the chair and you're like, I'm going to kill that dang mosquito. I can't even watch the show while it's buzzing. That's a little bit what's going on. There is this buzzing that keeps coming near your ears and reminding you of whatever that underlying anxiety is. Maybe you owe taxes and you don't know where that money's coming from. And so this creeping of anxiety and tension is building inside of you, invisibly to everyone else, but also invisible to you. And what happens is your nervous system is looking for a release. It wants to let out all of this perfectly carefully managed pent-up frustration. You know what happens? It's the dang shoes in the hall that trigger the release. You walk through the front door having just gone shopping and your brain is sort of mulling over, how are we going to pay that big bill? Or what am I going to say to that friend? Or how am I going to repair what happened with my husband or wife? And you walk in and trip over a pair of shoes. And you keep walking and suddenly the clutter everywhere is the enemy. It is the victim of your anger. It represents an outer chaos that now you can address, because we all know how to pick up shoes. We all know how to wash tea towels. We might not know how to pay the tax bill, but we know how to get the living room in order, and suddenly that disorder is the most oppressive experience in our lives. Have you had that feeling? So this is what happens to me. I walk in, I'm unaware that I've built up all this pent-up anxiety, and then I see this mess, and I see what look like lazy children lounging on the couch, playing a video game, watching TV, dropping popcorn on the carpet, and I go into what my kids call pedonkadonk mode. You know what that is? For me, that is, I go from being nice, loving Julie parent to, what? Exasperated Julie. I say things like, how many pairs of shoes do I have to trip over before I come into the living room? And is anyone even going to greet me or help me carry in the groceries? I say something ridiculous like that. These poor innocent children who are big, who are gangly, who are teenagers, who are young adults, who could have helped. I treat them like they should read my mind and fix my ailment. Here's what happens when you're losing your cool. You've decided that the inner chaos can be resolved by fixing the external world. And instead of taking responsibility for that, you assign it to the people in your life. My inner disquiet could be reordered and saved if my kids cleaned up the living room. If someone would wash the dishes, if a child would hop up and automatically take the groceries out of the trunk for me. Do you know what I'm saying? In other words, when we lose our cool, we are saying that I can only be restored to sanity if everybody else in my life gets in line and makes me feel better. And that is the primary way that we lose trust in our relationships. It's when we hold other people responsible for noticing our discomfort and fixing it for us, especially if they would fix it without being told to fix it. Here's how you can reverse that particular curse. You can start to pay attention to all this stuff that's bubbling up. One of the things I like to say is push the pause button. If you can push the pause button before you explode, amazing. But you can only push it if you know something's accumulating. For me now, I know when chaos is around me in my house and I'm bothered by it, it means something's going on with me. Because I'm not always bothered by it. Sometimes I enter right into the mess and create one of my own. Sometimes I walk in and I kick the shoes out of the way and I plop down on the couch and make a mess with popcorn too. And my kids can't always know which Julie's gonna walk through that door. I want them to know. I want them to be able to count on the Julie who is able to join and to see the space. And if I am in a mood that needs a cleared space, that I would own it. I'd walk in and say, whoa, oh my gosh, I am so stressed out today. I can't really handle all these shoes in the hallway. And it's really hard for me to walk in and see popcorn on the floor. I'm going to start picking it up. So if you don't know where your shoes are, they're going to be in this laundry basket over here. I'm going to move them. I'm going to pick them up. And then maybe someone will hop up and help you. Or maybe you'll even ask for help. I'm overwhelmed. I feel terrible. Does anyone want to help me feel better? If you do, join me in a shoe pickup. Like that. Where you are owning that you're asking people to help meet your need. Now, you're not going to do it perfectly. Everybody loses their cool. In fact, the aim that we all have in homeschool is this thing called consistency, but it is absolutely human to be inconsistent. That might even be the definition of being human. You won't always get to the point where you can push the pause button. Inside, you might be trying to push the pause button. And like I've shared before, just imagine you've got the DVR remote in your hand and you're trying to push pause and instead you hit fast forward and you're just like blazing through the whole show. Right? That's what'll happen. You'll know inside, I should be pausing, I should be pausing. And your mouth is just going to fast forward right into losing your cool anyway. That happens. That happens. So what I challenged everyone to do yesterday and what I'd like to challenge you to do today is to start noticing that feeling that bubbles up in you, the loss of control, the feeling that I have a lot of stress in me right now, and I'm looking for a way to discharge it. I'm looking for a trigger. Who am I going to blame? Who am I going to recruit to be accountable for my inner disquiet? And then you can make some choices. You might push the pause button before you even get mad, before you lose your cool. Awesome, A+. You might get partway into being upset and push the pause button, A+. You might get to the end having totally lost it and suddenly realize, wow, I just lost it on my children. The moment you notice that, A+. Why? Because awareness is the only path forward. You can apologize, you can pause and regroup, you can stop and not even do it. Any of those are progress. And as one of my friends likes to remind me, we are after progress, not perfection. We're looking for the opportunity to keep revising how we engage our children, how we explore this thing called relational dynamic. You're just a person. You're gonna lose it. You can't do everything perfectly. Robots, we can count on. Human beings, not so much. But you know what repairs it after you lose your cool or right in the middle? It's the admission of your own lack of consistency that helps people feel safe with you again. Fundamentally, when you dump all your anger and anxiety on another person, you momentarily rob them of trust. They don't get to trust you. They start to feel as though they are unsafe. And to restore safety means you have to own it. You can't just say, well, you kind of deserved it. You guys have been so lazy this week. That doesn't do it. What does it is, I'm realizing that when I'm in this season of life, I cannot also deal with chaos. I don't know how to solve that problem. I need help. I don't want to be the person who blames all of you for what's going on with me. I know we have different standards, right? Don't kids have different standards than you? You know, I shared before, and I want to make sure I don't forget this piece. Our kids lose control. They yell. They punch a sister. They throw a shoe. They get frustrated. And how do parents react to that? Well, parents typically act as though children are never allowed to lose their cool. But what happens when a parent loses their cool? Well, parents act as though that's justified because, hello, this child caused me to be upset. Isn't that a double standard? How can a child with less maturity, a shorter amount of time on the planet, be held responsible for always being cooperative, collaborative, peaceful, not angry? Why can we hold a child accountable for that and yet give ourselves a pass? Say, well, it's okay once in a while for a parent to blow up. What if we recognize that all humans occasionally lose it? All humans are struggling to keep their own inner anxiety levels down. And they are hoping to find external support when they are in the biggest part of that crisis. When your child is yelling, that's what he or she is asking for someone out there to rescue them from that inner disquiet. What a gift to your children if you could be the person who says, I know what that feels like. I've been there. Remember last week when I blew up over shoes in the hallway? Oh, honey, I know exactly what you feel. Here's what I want to do to improve. Here's an idea for you. And one of the ways that we can improve is to breathe, is to actually actively quiet the nervous system. And here's what we did yesterday, and here's what I want to do today. Just take a deep breath. Just, you could do that right in front of your kids, right when you're ready to ramp up. You could just, let them see you calm yourself. Give them a visual of the tool that would help them. Our children have a right to the variation of their moods, just like we do. But the goal is to slowly gain more and more control over that displacement of our upset. Ultimately, we are all responsible for our own well-being. As we say, happiness is an inside job. There is no amount of order you can get other people to create for you that will quiet your inner turmoil. The inner turmoil is yours to manage, and you don't get to dump it on other people just because you're feeling it. What you can do instead is get to know the contours of what's going on with you, start to take responsibility for it, and then order your environment yourself. If the chaotic house is upsetting to you, you have some choices. And not all of them are chore charts. You don't only have the chore chart as your option. You can come up with ways for you to be relieved of that responsibility. Maybe you do have to hire someone to come in once a week. Maybe you need to have one room in the house that is ordered that you retreat to while the rest of the house is a mess. Maybe you need to recruit family members to care about each other and to discuss when is it okay for it to be a mess and when is it not as okay, and how can we help each other reach those goals. Those are the kinds of things I'm talking about. Your loss of control, your anger, is yours to manage. And then your children, as they are learning how to manage theirs, really have a partner in that growth. Not just a superintendent requiring perfect behavior from kids while we allow parents to not have perfect behavior, to be bullies or bossy or angry or name callers. And we've all done it. And if you've done it, how can you expect a 6-year-old not to do it? Or a 15-year-old with raging hormones? How is that possible? Does that make sense? So as we're going about our week, between now and next Monday, I want you to just pay attention to what's going on inside me? What is this feeling? And when you feel it and you notice that you're triggered, I can't take it anymore, do a breath. Pull some good energy into your body. Allow that nervous system to calm down a little bit. And hold back or interrupt yourself or apologize. Pick one. Do it once this week, just once, when you feel that coming. I used to lead a parenting group back when I knew nothing. I was in my 30s. What was I doing? But somehow I got roped into leading this parenting group, and the focal point of this group was how to stop anger, because anger was the #1 problem in families. In fact, there was a study done years ago. I wish I had it at my fingertips, but it was current at the time I led this class. And it was all these school children interviewed. They were interviewed to find out what is the one thing they wish their parents didn't do. And the top #1 thing in the whole list was they wished their parents didn't yell at them. #1, universal by a long stretch. And so in this group, we were talking about how do we manage our anger? And what I noticed was so many parents couldn't manage it. We would talk one week and the next week they'd yell again and they'd come back and feel guilty. So we started this one practice each week before the little parenting support group began, where we would close our eyes and we would imagine the most recent experience, the most recent trigger. So fully inhabiting that moment, and we would just walk through it. I'd walk them through it. Okay, so what are you seeing now? What's happening in your body? What are you feeling in your jaw? What are you imagining the outcome of your anger will be that will make you feel better? How will you engage differently this time? And we just kept practicing different imaginary scenarios in our imaginations to help, because the only way to stop it is if when it's happening, you're aware that that's what's going on. And sometimes what you need is what I call the ticker tape reminder. I need them all the time. I'm in a support group every week where we talk about slogans and ways to hold our frustration and anxiety. I have to be reminded all the time, I can do this for a week at a time. I can't do it for a lifetime. There's no total cure. There is only reminders, checking in, examining, closing our eyes, breathing, journaling, staying accountable, right? You're never going to cure it all for all time. So if you can sort of give yourself permission to re-inhabit those moments, as painful as that is, in your imagination, maybe the next time it's ramping up, this little flicker of memory will pop through your mind and you'll think, oh yeah, this is how I feel. I'm kind of hungry. Maybe I'll go eat a turkey sandwich before we talk about this living room. Maybe now that I know what happened with this teenager that I'm very upset about, I will just set a timer on my phone and I won't talk about it for 24 hours. I'll give myself a full 24-hour recover from the shock moment before we have a conversation. I'll build in a little buffer. So that's what you can do to start working through that. And honestly, in this parenting group meeting, it actually helped. Parents started to notice the ramp up. Because here's what it is. It's like you've got this freeway, right, of life. And all of a sudden, you are given some options, to go off onto this ramp. I was just in California, right, in Los Angeles, where there are 65 freeway choices at all given times. And Google Maps and Waze, they're going to tell you different ways to get to places to save time, right? You are always choosing which ramp to get on. Are you going to get on the on-ramp to your anger? Or are you going to take the scenic route? Or are you just going to go smooth and steady? You get to pick, but you only get to pick if you see the signs. If you can't see the signs, you're just going to drive onto the one that's the fastest speed, right? That puts you on that highway to anger. That's where you're going to go. So your job this week, if you choose to accept it, is to start to build some awareness of your own habits and patterns, to create grace for when you just rush right over that line and say the regrettable thing and do the regrettable thing. It's to create space for childishness so that your kids aren't held to a different standard than the one you hold yourself to, so that everybody has space to learn how to take responsibility for their own well-being and not hold other people accountable for making me feel better. That's no one else's job. It's only yours. And we get to help our kids learn that skill. Can you imagine what a great, marriage partner, a person who knows how to take care of themselves would be, who isn't seeking it from the partner all the time, who isn't blaming, shaming, and yelling at the other person because they don't have a sense of calm and they're requiring the other person to create it for them. Can you imagine what kind of employee, boss, partner, spouse, parent that adult would be? It starts with you. You get to be that person first. And then you get to help your kids become those people. Thanks for joining me today. This was great. I wish I could read your comments, but you know I do. I always go into Facebook Live afterwards, and I will go through and welcome new people. If you're new, always tell me. Make sure you're liking this page so you can get future notifications. We just went over 42,000 likes on Facebook. That's pretty awesome. And we're very, very happy to have you reading along in this book, A Gracious Space Spring. If you enjoy this book, I always invite our listeners to leave reviews in Amazon. That is how we get the word out to other people. It's why I feel so comfortable sharing here, because I know that I have such a wonderful community of homeschoolers that all support this message. And we can change the culture in our homes and in our homeschools when we all recognize that the real project is peace in our homes. Peace and progress. That's what we're after. Peace and progress. That's it. That's the whole deal. So, with that in mind, I will let you get back to your homeschooling days. Thank you for joining me today. If you want to take online writing classes with us, we just posted the summer schedule. So you can go look at that, bravewriter.com/online-classes. And if you're interested in more coaching like this, we do a ton of it in the Homeschool Alliance. CoachJulieBogart.com. We are looking at assessment in May. We're talking about ways to evaluate your work as a home educator and the schoolwork and progress your kids have made. It's all about sanity, none of it about guilt. So if you want more help and support in that field, just sign up at CoachJulieBogart.com. You can sign up for a month or a year, as much or as little as you like. It's open all the time. Thanks again for joining me today. Let's close. I like to say, live honestly, write bravely. And this week, keep your cool. I'm Julie Bogart from Brave Writer. See you all later.